Hi there. Today I'm going to review the documentary Catching Lightning, which features Lee Murray. Now, Lee Murray was at one time one of the most promising mixed martial artists in the UK. And the documentary, which features interviews with his friends, his family, his training partners, his coaches, and some of the competitors at the time, explore all the aspects in this remarkable story in some detail. Now, his nickname was Lightning Lee Murray because he had very fast hands, he had knockout power. He was praised by his boxing coaches in the film. But success in MMA depends on a lot more than just being able to punch well. You've got to be very, very well rounded in all aspects. And Lee Murray sought training to develop this. And one of the people he trained with was Pat Miletich, and Lee Murray went out to Iowa to train at the renowned and very severe training centre that Pat Miletich, who himself had a really respectable career in fighting, was running. And in the documentary, Pat Miletich does pay tribute to Lee Murray's skills and to his enthusiasm for training. His record in the ring or in the cage was pretty good and was improving all the time. And one of the people he fought was the Brazilian fighter known as Pele. And Lee Murray knocks him out in the second round. And in the movie, they interview Anderson Silva, and Anderson Silva tells about the shockwave that went through the community in Brazil, that this renowned fighter had been KO'd by this relatively unknown Englishman. So he has a fight lined up in London. A lot of the Americans are over, and all the details are in the film. But basically, he gets into an altercation with Tito Ortiz, who at the time was, I think he was the reigning light heavyweight champion. He certainly became it, and there's quite a few eyewitness testimonies to the fact that he threw a series of punches at Lee Murray. Lee Murray ducked them and flattened Tito Ortiz unconscious. Tito denies this, but as I say, people like Matt Hughes, Bruce Buffer were eyewitnesses and confirmed that it actually did happen. Subsequently, he fights Anderson Silva in London. Now, Anderson Silva, of course, became renowned as the greatest of all time and one of the most amazing fighters ever. But Lee Murray took him to a decision, which not many people were able to do. So that shows the caliber of the man at the time. He then gets a fight in Vegas for the UFC. Now this is the big ticket, his chance to shine, etc. And true to form, he comes out brimming in confidence, and he fights Jorge Rivera, another highly renowned Brazilian fighter. And of course the Brazilians are known for their ground skills, and amazingly, being known as Lightning Lee Murray for his punches, Lee Murray submits him on the ground with a triangle. in the first round. So it looked like his career was all set to take off big time. The UFC was and still is the real shop window for mixed martial arts. Back in London, he's involved in a road rage incident where he is the victim. He's in his car with his excuse me, heavily pregnant wife and his young daughter, and a guy decides to mess around, basically slow him down and so on. Words are exchanged, and the guy ends up sideswiping and ramming the car several times. And Lee manages to get out, and concerned about his family because the guy's still at it, drags the guy out the car and levels him unconscious. Amazingly, despite the obvious facts, Lee Murray's car has been T-boned and his family are covered in glass and bruises and cuts, he is arrested and charged. He is acquitted. And the prosecution wants to retry him, but the judge advises them not to. However, the Met tell the United States authorities that he's on bail for attempted murder and he can't get a US visa, and his UFC career grinds to a halt. This is where the story gets really interesting. He is then involved in the biggest cash robbery in history. There's a Securitas, big security company, renowned in Europe, depot in Tunbridge, Kent, and it's where the cash, the notes for the Bank of England are collected. A gang of roughly a dozen bandits take over the depot by kidnapping the manager and his family, his wife and child, and using them to gain access. They take over the whole depot and steal 53 million in cash. But they leave twice that amount because they brought a Pantechnicon, a large lorry, and they filled it. They haven't got any more means to carry the cash away, so they get away with the record amount of 53 million, but it just shows how much was left. The police are called, and despite the police station only being 2 blocks away, they have no idea what this Securitas depot is all about and the amount of money that it regularly processes. So the Kent police officers, primarily a detective sergeant, is interviewed for the film, and he takes up the tale. Now, despite the gang being heavily disguised, they actually look like Antifa protesters, head to foot in black, full-face balaclavas plus dark goggles. Not as heavily armed as Antifa. They've only got AK-47s and subguns. Despite this, within 24 hours of the robbery, the Met have told Kent police that it's highly likely Lee Murray is the one of the culprits, and they, by various sources of information, they're given the address of a female who's involved, who is a hairdresser and who actually did the prosthetics for the gang, facial disguises basically. And on that day, the day after the robbery, they have a windfall of DNA evidence from the discarded makeup and masks and so on in her trash can, her dustbin, and it just goes from there. Now, the Kent police detective says, although the robbery was carried out with military precision, the getaway was a total clown show, and it was. There's an abandoned truck that they find with about $1 million in cash and weapons and other items just in a field. The police just located, and it goes on from there. The mistakes made by the gang members are jaw-dropping. If you included them in a movie, a heist movie, you'd laugh at them. You'd say, no, people aren't that stupid. One of the things is that the police find out that Lee Murray was arrested a couple of days before the robbery on a drunk driving charge, and his vehicle, a Ferrari, is still in the police pound, and they go and seize it, and the evidence there, I won't give anything away, but some of the evidence is absolutely amazing and critical and absolutely condemning. By the way, the American coaches kind of fill in some of the blanks, that when he went over to America to train, they were worried, they were amazed by the fact that this guy turned up to train and he's wearing a Rolex watch, and when they met him in London he's driving a Ferrari and a Range Rover. So they kind of put two and two together and they realise he's a wrong one. Now that's not all that unknown in mixed martial arts. I mean, here in Liverpool, a couple of quite prominent mixed martial arts fighters are currently in jail for drug dealing. So unfortunately, it's something that has been not, I wouldn't say common, but has happened before. Anyway, most of the gang are rounded up. Lee Murray escapes or goes to Morocco, where his father is from, so he has dual Moroccan British citizenship. He's tracked down to Morocco by the police, and there's a process of extradition attempted. However, he's got a Moroccan passport, and that becomes problematic. Meanwhile, the rest of the gang that have been captured are put on trial, and stuff comes out at the trial which is quite jaw-dropping as well. Lots of surprises. I won't go into what happens in Morocco. That's all part of the really interesting story. But every aspect of this documentary and every aspect of the actual story is fascinating. It's all told with first-hand accounts from people who were there, from the police officers, from Moroccan officials and so on. And it's amazing. If you made it into a movie with Jason Statham, it would be an absolute bestseller, a blockbuster, except for the fact that a lot of it would be deemed too unbelievable to film. So really recommend it. Terrific documentary. It's in 4 parts, and I'll put the link where you can get it, and also the trailer. I really enjoyed it.